Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly, and we're back with another Southwest Virginia fishing report with Matt Reilly. How's it going, Matt?
I'm doing great, Marvin. How are you?
Just trying to stay out of trouble. Did you guys get all the rain that we got over here in North Carolina last week?
We did. It was kind of spotty. Western North Carolina definitely seems like they got plenty in that like West Jefferson Boone area because the new had a ton of water coming down it last weekend, and we got some locally too, but it's been all over the place. Like some of the New River tributaries got hit pretty good, some of them didn't. Some of our trout streams that have been low pretty much all summer and fall are still low, and some of them got a good dose of rain and came up quite a bit. So it's you kind of have to know where the water went, and if you're trout fishing, last week you had high water some places and low water some places, and it's kind of evened out a little bit now. But yeah, not really consistent all over the region, but we got some, which is good.
Got it. How did the blast of cold air affect everything?
I didn't notice too much. I think I'm kind of hoping that it stays cold here to drop the temp in the New River a little bit and kind of get our mid-fall winter muskie season going a little better. Trout fishing didn't really seem to slow down much. It's just colder personally being outside, but I haven't noticed much of a difference in the fishing.
Got it. And are you kind of in the main throes of muskie season, or are we still kind of waiting for that to ramp up?
It is ramping up. I mean, it's been decent. It hasn't really gotten hot yet, but we've been seeing fish and getting fish to eat just about every day they've been out in the last couple of weeks. We've had some bad luck. Some people have lost some nice fish at the boat here this week. So it feels like we're kind of still at the beginning, but we've had lots of opportunities. And yeah, I mean, it'll just get better from here on out. Really, towards the end of this month, I would expect it to be pretty good.
Got it. And on the trout side, right, I guess you've got two flavors of ice cream. You got to either fish in high, probably stained water, and fish the edges and fish on structure, or you got the low stuff where you got to use really skinny tippet and probably fish pretty accurate representations of insects.
Yeah, it like you said. I mean, there's two sides to the trout coin right now. Some of the creeks are high, and I like that. This time of year, particularly in the creeks that have more brown trout in them, because they're ramping up for their spawn, and so they're getting a little more aggressive, and you have an opportunity to catch a pretty big fish. But then one of the creeks that I do a lot of trout fishing and guiding on is still pretty low, and it's like you said, low water, smaller tippet, nymph fishing primarily, but there's a lot of trout streams around here, and I kind of they've all got different characters, so I like to fish the more broken water, pockety kind of stuff when we've got the low water, and that helps you. It kind of reduces that. You don't have to be quite as stealthy. The fish can't see you from 500 feet away like they can in another creek where you've got long pieces of flat water with fish holding in them. So it's just kind of picking your water carefully, and it is primarily nymph fishing in the low water, unless like I said, some of those creeks with the higher water, I like to throw some sculpin and crayfish patterns and that kind of thing, and that can do pretty well.
Got it. Yeah, it's always important to tilt the odds in your favor.
Yes, 100%. That's something I believe in a lot. And, like I said, this time of year, you've got aggressive brown trout. If you have higher water in those creeks with brown trout in it, that's where I want to be.
And we got another listener question, Matt, and it's from Eric. And Eric wanted to know, he's seen signs for private water and understands, some shops have access to private water, some clubs do, but was really kind of curious about what's the difference between public and private water, and when is it worth paying the money to go fish private water?
Just in terms of like the fishing experience?
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's kind of a tricky question. And there's a lot of different sort of angles and elements involved, but, it is to stick up for the shops and the guides, right off. I mean, that is something that's valuable to have, because, if you've got private access to private water, you can do private stockings, you can supplementally feed, you can do that kind of thing to get, more fish and bigger fish in your creek. And generally, you've got less pressure if it's privatized. And, that's what some people want to do. They want to go someplace where they can catch a lot of big fish and not really have to work that hard for them, whereas, generally a sort of a less managed public resource, the bigger fish are a smaller piece of that population pyramid. So yeah, I mean, it can definitely be worth it. But you kind of have to know what you're getting into too. I mean, there are some, and I know of a fair number of private water situations that are great fisheries, but they're a little more seasonal than others, because they're pieces of water that sort of have marginal water temps and that kind of thing. So, the fishing can be great, all winter and spring, but, you go in June and July and you've got zombie fish laying in the creek because the water temps are in the 70s, That's definitely something to keep in mind. But in terms of just the fishing experience, I mean, I've done both and I enjoy both. Everywhere I guide currently is public, and I guess I enjoy that because I feel like I've just got more reign. I can go pretty much wherever I want. We've got dozens and dozens of miles of trout stream, and again, kind of speaking from the fly shop guiding aspect of it, that I guess sort of the downside of that is that, if you take somebody fishing there, then they can come back on their own. But, that if in my opinion, if you're a good guide and you're guiding people well, you're teaching them things and you're showing them an experience that they would not have on their own. So your service is still valuable. And that's not, all clients don't get the same thing out of a trip, but generally that's how I kind of think about that.
Yeah, I think it is important.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's a lot of different sides to that, so I don't know how to completely answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, I think, your point about being able to manage pressure is important, right? Because if you don't know where to go and you don't get a lot of days to fish, it's important to know that you're going somewhere where, the fish haven't been absolutely hammered, right? So that's a great thing. And then, the only other suggestion or only other thing I would add is I think it's helpful to understand kind of the feeding philosophy for the fish, right? Because, because you can overfeed them and then they really, they eat flies that look like fish food. And that's one approach. Or you can feed them just enough to get them to hang around, and they can still be pretty hard and pretty selective to catch. So,
yeah. So, I mean, there are a number of places in the Southeast that have wild populations of fish in a privatized section of river that they supplementally feed. And, again, it does depend on the feeding philosophy. I mean, you can feed, with dog food, once a week or every other day or something like that. And you're going to greatly increase the growth potential of fish in that stream, because people don't think about this a lot, but every piece of water has, it has its own level of productivity. There are, low, infertile creeks, and there are very fertile creeks, and you're going to get bigger fish and more big fish in fertile creeks. And so if you have, an infertile or sort of, mid-level system and you're supplementally feeding, those fish are going to grow, they're going to have a bigger, potential. And, like you said, not feeding all the time is a great way to achieve that, keep the fish, around and in, your private section of river, but still have them behave as sort of wild fish.
Yeah, and I really appreciate the question, and keep the questions coming. If you'll just direct message us on Facebook, on our Facebook page at The Articulate Fly, and if we read your question, I'll send you some Articulate Fly swag, and you will get entered into a drawing at the end of the season for some discount coupons for Reilly rods and some Matt Reilly original flies. Well, Matt, it's not a fishing report with you if we don't talk about your upcoming Rural Virginian article. What are you working on?
Yeah, so this week, Muskie's been on my mind pretty heavy lately, and I'm putting together an article that's just sort of like a primer on muskie fishing with flies and sort of, what to expect and what it's really like. Because I feel like a lot of people, they see these pictures of these, see pictures on Instagram of these giant fish with teeth and these big flies, and they, sort of build their own expectations. And it's a very cool thing, but there's a lot of work involved, and it's not easy by any stretch of the imagination. So, just sort of a primer and how to approach it, when if you do decide to pursue muskie on the fly, because, they're not easy, but they do get under your skin, and it's a cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy to see one of those fish kind of chase your fly, but, to your point, I seem to always, like, the instant I am not concentrating about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's when it blows up, and you hopefully you hope you're able to recover quickly enough.
Yeah.
Well, listen, before I let you go, why don't you let folks know where they can find you so they can book you and fish with you?
Sure. The website is mattreillyflyfishing.com, and my email and phone number and all that's on there, so feel free to contact me any way you like, and I look forward to fishing with you.
Yeah, and folks, before the holidays are upon us, you owe it to yourself to get out and fish, and if you haven't yet, it'd be great if you check out the Articulate Fly apps. You can find them in the Android store of your choice or in the Apple App Store, and folks, get out there and catch a few. Tight lines, Matt. Tight lines, everybody.